See you at the curtain call.
Welcome to Rewatchers in the Lodge, the podcast where now everyone has watched every single minute of Twin Peaks, and we are here to talk about the final 2 episodes. You're here with me, Tyler Harris, with
Marcus Marinos,
Riley Harris,
Tyler McKinley,
Mitchell Marshall,
Justin Hammer.
and we are going to talk about part 17 and 18 of Twin Peaks, which I did not look up this information of when it aired. So
if we could have just remembered last week.
If we could only remember last week's. Listen, just go back.
September 23rd, 2017.
That's it.
And September 30th, 2017.
Nope, it was the same night. So it's just September 26th. So these were aired the same night. Written by Mark Frost and David Lynch. Directed by David Lynch. Airing a week after whatever the date was I said last week. And Mitchell is going to finally give you a comprehensive, to-date, moment-to-moment explanation of the ending of Twin Peaks. Thank you, Mitchell.
This is going to be much more like the ending the Bible is in Revelation rather than Endgame, just so you know. Here we go. Gordon Cole laments not being able to put a cap in Diane's ass. The Blue Rose Squad toasts to the Bureau. Cole tells Preston and Albert a secret that Major Briggs told he and Cooper about June, who's an entity. June? Shit. Judy, who's an entity. Typo. Cooper told him if he goes missing like Jeffries, do everything they can to find him. Ray told Cole about coordinates for Briggs. Cole gets a call from FBI Las Vegas. Dougie's boss relays his message that he is headed to Sheriff Truman. Face injury guy in Twin Peaks jail and Chad trade barbs. Lady skin over her eyes chirps. James and Super Punch UK are puzzled. Jerry is in Jackson Hole. The sheriff... they tell Ben that he's been picked up by the local sheriff completely naked. Doppelkoop disappears in the forest after seeing a vortex. Briggs' giant floating head and the giant watch the forest and Laura Palmer's house on the projection screen. A cage floats around. Doppelkoop appears at the Twin Peaks sheriff's office. He runs into Andy. Bird Box Lady is in a panic. Chad pulls keys out of his shoe heel. Mr. C meets with Truman. Andy and Lucy are stoked. Andy has a flashback to his lodge experience. Chad escapes and sneaks into the safe room where he gets a gun. Face wound guy rips off a bandage. Chad has Andy at gunpoint. Super Punch UK punches his cell door open and KOs Chad. Real Coop calls Truman and he realizes what's going on, and he and Mr. C draw their guns, but Lucy shoots Mr. C before either of the others can get a shot off. The gang gathers in the office, but the hobo ghosts come for Mr. C again. Real Coop arrives as Mr. C bursts Bob's space asteroid. It attacks Coop, but Freddy, a.k.a. Super Punch UK, steps up and gets his ass beat before finally punching the Bob Rock into the Earth's core. But he ain't done yet. In round 2, Freddy waits again forever before hitting back, but Bob is cracked into many pieces. Coop puts the ring on Mr. C, who bleeds dry ice before fading away. One for the grandkids. Bobby and the FBI homies all show up at once. Coop's face watermarks this scene. Lady Bird Box touches Coop's hand, and her head disintegrates into the lodge waiting room where it is a bloody skull with Diane in it. She appears at the station and kisses Coop. She has red hair and black and white nail polish embodying the waiting room. The watermark says they live inside a dream. Coop, Gordon, and Diane walk through a factory basement-looking place. Coop goes through a door and says, "See you at the curtain call." In a pitch-black room, he sees one-armed Mike. They walk through a door/hallway to the staircase. They go up to the motel parking lot. Tea Kettle Philip Jeffries tells Coop where to find Judy. The steam spews the ring symbol, which turns into a figure 8. Flashback. James picks up Laura on his bike, and her dad/Bob watches. They drive off. Coop sees their makeout. We see Laura tell James a bunch of dramatic shit. She runs off to her death, but Cooper stands in the way and takes her by the hand. Her body disappears from the plastic wrap she is found in. Coop guides her home. Maybe. We see the very beginning of the show with Josie. Pete no longer discovers the body. In present day, ? We hear guttural wailing at the Palmer house. Sarah smashes a bottle over Laura's homecoming photo. Coop guides Laura through the forest, but he looks back and she is gone. We hear her screams. The forest becomes a band at the Roadhouse. Final episode. Here we go. Mr. C burns like Satan in the waiting room. Mike puts a gold pearl and a lock of hair on a chair. It expands to become Coop. He returns to Naomi and Sunny Jim. Coop leads Laura through the forest again. She disappears again. He hears electricity and then screams. Mike asks if this is future or past and disappears into the waiting or disapparates into the waiting room corner. He and Coop go to the arm. He asks if this is the story of the little girl down the lane. Laura whispers into Coop's ear and zooms away. In another waiting room, Coop sees Mr. Palmer, who asks about Laura. Coop walks out of the forest entrance at Twin Peaks and sees Diane. They drive along a desert road and stop at exactly 430 miles. We hear the power lines buzz, but nothing happens. They make out as they drive off. It flickers tonight. They drive along and pull up at a motel. Coop goes inside, and Diane sees her doppelganger. They go into room number 7 and bang with the lights off. She's on top. She has great shoulder blades. Coop seems kind of lazy. We get some 50 music in the background. She grabs his face as she climaxes. I need to emphasize how long we see her moving up and down here. She almost tearfully stares into the sky. Coop awakens and she is gone. Her note says, Dear Richard, don't find me. I don't recognize you. Linda. At a local diner called Judy's, Coop gets some coffee and tells off a misogynist cowboy or 3. They pull a gat and he caps their asses. He tells the waitress he needs to address the other waitress, or he needs the address of the other waitress. He helps make sure the fries don't get burnt by pulling them out of the fryer, and then throws the guns of the bad guys in the fryer oil. At the other waitress's house, there's a power pole with the number 6 on it. Laura answers the door, but she says she's not Laura, she's Carrie Page. Coop tells her details of her life, and he wants to take her back to her mom. She packs. There's a dead man in her living room with blood splatter behind his head, NBD. They drive at night for a really, really long time. If you can't watch a movie on a little cell phone, you also can't make a scene this long. They stop for gas and eventually pull up to the Palmer's house. A stranger answers the door. After long questioning, finding out that the house has probably never belonged to the Palmers, they walk away. Cooper asks what year it is. We slightly hear Sarah Palmer say Laura's name. Laura screams. We see her whisper in Cooper's ear from episode 1. And that's the end of the freaking show.
That's it.
Here's the thing, David Lynch. Don't go taking your advice from the really shitty Planet of the Apes movie with Mark Wahlberg, because that's the closest comparison I have for this ending.
That's one of the worst takes I've ever heard in my life. Okay.
Tell me how it's different. Tim Burton, David Lynch, both of you go burn in hell.
Okay, fuck off. So let's talk about these episodes. And we can talk about that later, because, wow. So let's just start the easiest way. We're just going to go through point by point in order for these episodes, because there's not a whole lot of cutting to other stuff.
I mean, you don't know, but sorry.
Okay. So we start off with the first thing we see is Doppelcoop, right? In the truck?
Gordon.
Or Gordon. Okay,
Yeah.
we see the FBI stuff. Which is where we get a lot of expository stuff.
He really, he goes on
yeah.
for a minute, like, telling us stuff. Putting some things out there.
And specifically about Judy, Zhao Day, as he
Which is
says.
so perfect with the Yao Duve.
It's the Hebrew root of Judy, and it got changed in the Greek translation.
What is his pronunciation again of the old ancient?
Zhao Day.
Zhao Day. Does
Yes.
Zhao Day have a Wikipedia entrance, and is it a real thing?
I honestly am not entirely sure if it is. I don't think it is. There probably is. I don't know.
Okay.
There is enough stuff, real world stuff tied into the mythos of Twin Peaks at this point, including Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard's relationship, that it could be. Who knows? There's enough. So, but anyways, an extreme negative force that both Philip Jeffries and Major Briggs had contact with, and then had planned with Gordon Cole and Dale Cooper, created a plan to find her, find it, whatever it is. But yeah, that's a rare thing to get in Twin Peaks, is people looking at other characters and being like, here's some shit.
Here's what's actually going on.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything you guys want to talk about with that scene? I'm more interested in what you guys have
Gone
to say
soft
at this
cold.
point of that. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Only
Way
in
that
the
matters, buddy.
Let's go.
Which is probably a conversation David Lynch has actually had with someone. Probably. I don't know. whatever.
That was just like them on set. That was just like normal conversation
Yeah.
between the two of them that he saw. And was like, yeah, let's keep it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the burning question we all had. Can Cole still get erections at his age? And now we know.
As if there was any doubt after we saw that total smoke show in his hotel room. So we have that scene, and then he calls, or he gets a call from the Vegas FBI, the greatest branch of the FBI. I think we can agree. And talks to Bushnell Mullins, who relays the message from Cooper, which Cooper says was. Did he say the message was sent at 2:53 or whatever? In that message, like the message.
so.
I thought he woke
message.
up at 2:50. Like,
I think that was in the message.
Yeah, in
yeah.
the thing that he reads, he says this message was sent at 2:53, which adds up to 10, the number of completion, which is part of the message to Gordon Cole. So that number pops up multiple times in this episode. Well, at least one other time. I can't think of it multiple, but yeah, and then that basically tips them off to go to Twin Peaks, where now everyone is going because it's the greatest.
About time.
Yeah, this. I mean, it's only taking us 15 hours.
Right.
What did you expect from a show called Twin Peaks? That we're just gonna
More
be
buckhorn,
there.
okay?
So let's talk about this next segment. I love. I just like to think of it as the Andy opera. It's all the stuff that Andy has seen coming together in ways that are really great. I guess we should talk about Mr. C before that, though.
Yeah.
How Mr. C gets to Twin Peaks.
So my impression was that he was trying to get to wherever the fireman resides. And the fireman's just like, nope, into the tube with you. And
Yeah.
sends him there.
So, okay, yeah. What was anyone else's read on
That's
that?
what that
Did you
cage
guys have
was.
that
That
same-
like trapped him while he was in there. And then,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
yeah.
That's probably what he said, the fireman.
How do you catch a Mr. C? You just lure him with a big Briggs head.
The fireman's just sent Mr. C a meme of himself going from season 2 of Twin Peaks that no one can see on this audio podcast. So I think the notable thing that happens in that is we see when Mr. C goes into that room, the Palmer's house is on the screen, which is pretty much established at this point with the stuff we've seen with Sarah Palmer, the stuff we see with Sarah Palmer at the end of this episode, and probably that seems to be maybe the actual place that the coordinates are leading in Twin Peaks. Is that I think he's trying to get to Judy, whatever that means, and then he's swiped. Fireman swipes right on the Palmer's house, keeping them safe. I don't know.
Did they swipe right on him? That's the question.
that is the
takes
other
a while.
question. Of the many questions that are not answered in Twin Peaks, that is probably number 4 in my mind.
Between 4 and 6, yeah. Put it
And yeah, and then sends him to the sheriff's department instead, which is probably part of this plan that he's worked out with Andy, or that he's told Andy is going to happen, and all of that. And then he shows up, and we get 100% Andy in this episode too. Like, I feel like the Andy that we haven't seen since a while. Like, we've seen him be kind of goofy, but in this, I feel like in this episode and in this sequence, he is maximum Andy.
But
and
he's
just
also
stoked.
badass Andy at the
For
same
sure.
time.
Yeah. He's in control, which is not a place we necessarily see Andy.
I just
very
love
often.
how this whole scene, Andy's just holding a very oversized picnic basket for no reason. He's just carrying it around with him the whole time.
Yeah.
Little
Mr.
did he
Cooper.
know he didn't need lunch because the Mitchell brothers were going to bring it.
Good thing they packed so many sandwiches.
So many sandwiches. Thanks, Bandy, Candy, and Brandy. Sandy.
I
Yeah.
think it's Sandy.
You always add brandy, and I like it.
Well-
it confuses me, but I like it.
I don't know. Maybe they're all related to Andy. Anyway, I mean, I just don't want any of those names to get left out.
Andy's a part of them. I mean, kind of, probably, sure. Spiritually, they feel similar.
They have a
energy,
same, the similar energy.
We should start a band called Andy, Candy, Mandy, Sandy, and Brandy. That's it.
Yes,
Pretty
sure.
long, pretty long name.
Just the list of names.
None of
Not
those
even
are
an
our names.
acronym or... and none of us have that name.
And Twin Peaks fans won't even get it because they'll be like, "Who the hell's Brandy?" And they'll be like, "Oh well."
I thought this was a reference until I heard Brandy, and then I was like, "Oh, this must be."
We really
Not
like
that.
Brandy from the Rodgers and
90s.
Hammerstein's '90s Cinderella
Yes.
movie. She's really and
Hey, she was a successful artist on the music charts for about a week, right?
she had a
Yeah,
solid
about
run.
a week.
Good.
Is that successful?
More success than I've had.
It
point.
gets you.
Yeah,
into,
that's
it
true.
gets you into Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, which was great.
It
was
was.
fine.
I liked it.
I just remember her sleeping in the bathtub. That's the only thing I remember.
Does that
Sorry.
happen?
Okay. I'm not going to do this
I
this
thought
week.
she
We're going to
also
keep
had a
moving
UPN
forward.
show called Brandy,
Yes.
and you can still see reruns on BET. You guys don't have the.
Did it originally air on Nickelodeon?
No, it was on UPN, or maybe WB.
Okay.
I mean, I think some of those things eventually like made their way to like Nick at Night or like the
Yeah.
in between of like Nick at Dusk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, do you know what was never on Nick at Night? Twin Peaks. So yeah, I guess what stood out to you guys about that? The whole section kind of going into all of that. I guess there's so much that's just cutting back and forth, and so many like things coming together. I think for me, I feel like Andy is the most interesting part of that scene because it's definitely worth going back and even watching just that section because even when Andy runs out after he's taken Mr. C in to meet with Sheriff Truman and he comes out and he looks at Lucy and he says very important for seemingly no reason, but then that's the phrase that she uses when she's on the phone with when she calls Sheriff Truman and he's like, I take a message, and she's like, no, this is a very important call. Like there's all these little like just kind of nuggets that let you see that yeah, Andy literally knows everything that's going to happen over this next little while at least. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything that stuck out to you guys? I feel like I'm talking way too much.
I feel like Chad had that hide key in his shoe the whole time, and he waited a really long time to pull it out and break out of jail.
Yeah,
He
It
didn't want
was
the
weird.
he didn't want the human monkey alarm from Fallout 4 going off to alert them that he was escaping.
who is the only person not present at the end, who was not brought up by Andy to the title match that is fought in the sheriff's office. Yeah, what a weird. I don't know. I have no read on that other than it just is a representation of fucked up pain and shit in Twin Peaks. I don't know. It's weird.
I'm right there with you. No read. No read whatsoever.
And what were James and Super Punch doing when he escaped? He was just that sneaky, or are they further down?
I think they were distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really hard to tell from the previous shots where he was in relation to them.
Yeah.
I thought he was on the other side of their cell the whole time. And he was like way at the end. But yeah, I was wondering that until he comes back in, you can see them, they're still like looking over at like the bird box lady, is that what you called her? Yeah.
Eventually, yes. She went through a handful of
I
nicknames.
wish you would have stuck. I liked Lady Skin on her eyes because it sounded
Bird Box Lady saved some time.
it sounded like the way that ye olden times British people would have named her. Lady Skin on her eyes.
That's where the last name Skinner actually comes from. Smith comes from blacksmith. Skinner comes from lady skin on her eyes.
Yeah, which turned into Skinner eyes and then just a Skinner.
It was actually Skinner eyes until Ellis Island, and now I'm at Skinner eyes. This is very weird, and now I don't know what accent. What would they be at Ellis Island? No,
We're
when they
gonna
land on
stick
the
to
outside, it's Skinner. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
it's just yeah.
What did you skin?
Okay. So yeah, so basically we have this
Jailbreak.
jail. Yeah, we have that whole scene. Freddy continues to fulfill his destiny by punching stuff.
What a plot device. The guy who works with Jim is just like, yeah, one time I had a dream I was supposed to come to America and use this new fist that's got to stay in this glove, and I was going to save some people.
I mean, I will say this. These two episodes almost reestablish Twin Peaks as a Greek tragedy, because we end with a Deus Ex Machina and have a very tragic, like, Orpheus moment at the end of this with when Laura Palmer disappears from Cooper's hands. Anyways, it's weird. It's super weird. And that whole, I mean, the Bob Orb fight is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
It is so
Yeah.
It's
bizarre.
acting like they didn't
It's
use
really
their best
weird.
CGI here.
Yeah.
We did skip over just Mr. C sitting across from Sheriff Truman. And
Yeah.
again, this is not the Truman that the original Coop knew. Mr. C seems to know enough of Cooper's memories to be able to kind of navigate this situation. I just had a really random thought that's something much later. Anyway, I just thought the tension in that was really well played.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think the entire build up to that that ends with Lucy shooting
Yeah.
Mr. C,
So
which is like I think a thing you don't see coming.
No.
Really.
Which helps her understand cell phones, you know? And thank
Which-
goodness.
She gets it.
Fucking that stupid scene was included in the missing piece. They filmed a scene in 1990, like two, about Lucy not understanding communication that did not make the cut for the final film, was included in the missing pieces. They have this dumb gag at the beginning of this season where Lucy's like Marx Brothers herself out of a chair when she sees a man walk through the door who's talking to her on the phone, and it culminates in her killing the big bad of the season. Yeah, which
Golden.
like I said, it's just a Greek tragedy. That's exactly what they did in it, like that Aeschylus did and everything. Anyways, So I think that's all like really well crafted. I do love the tension in that, and I love that build. And I love the conversation with Dale Cooper when he calls Sheriff Truman. But yeah, that let's talk about after that. Yeah. We have basically just for simplicity's sake, we have basically the main players of this season all in a room all of a sudden, gathered very conveniently, and then it gets even weirder after the orb fight by just superimposing Dale Cooper's face over the next 10 minutes, essentially, of show. Culminating in his pitch shifted voice saying, "We live inside a dream." Yeah. Anyone else want to talk about
And this is kind of our goodbye to Twin Peaks. We don't, or to these people.
Yeah.
And that's, we'll talk about this later, but like, if this show would have ended after episode 17, I probably would have been less flummoxed than how it ended after 18. And this is almost a fitting end. To say whatever but a dream, I mean, you can question a lot of elements of reality, but I think, one, why the hell are the Mitchell brothers there? But it's just funny, they have a couple of like lines that are really random, but no, it's the goodbye, and I think the biggest thing about Cooper hanging over that is what is Cooper now, and what is his entity, and that his floating face. It's like, okay, what's the closest thing we've seen to that? It's Briggs, and so you got to wonder with all the experience he has now in the lodges and things, how human is he? And we'll see later with the several endings Coop has and the way his behavior shifts at times. it's got to wonder what does happen. Another thing about that face is it stays still a lot of the time, but there's some times where it is very specifically moving, and
it's not just a still. Like
Yeah.
that is it's actual for sure.
Is that him sitting in the chair in the lodge?
What do you mean?
Like from the first episode?
Oh,
like, is that
that's a good
superimposed
question. I don't know.
image?
I'm not sure.
I thought it was the reaction that he made when he touched hands with the lady with the stuff over her eyes. I thought because there's a moment. Isn't that when that face appears on the screen for the first time?
Yeah, it is.
And I thought that was his reaction. There's something that triggered that face, and when he touched her hand or something, that was what I thought it was. I don't know if that means anything, but
yeah. Well, that's important to know. I feel like, man, a lot of we've talked about this a little bit. I think about this season in particular is there's a lot of people remembering things or seemingly coming into knowledge in these last 2 episodes, and yeah, it I don't know. It's such a I love that choice. It's fucking bonkers, and the only other time that we've really seen that is there's a scene in season 2 of Twin Peaks. It's when Donna is reading that page of Laura's diary to Dale Cooper, and he gets superimposed over the Black Lodge, and it's a very similar, like, it's his face for not that long, not as long as this, but for a substantial amount of time, that feels very close to this in a way. But yeah, and then the phrase, so let's talk about the phrase "we live inside a dream," because there's a couple lines in this in these episodes that really stick out to me and feel linked together. Cooper's head saying "we live inside a dream." Philip Jeffries later says, "If you see Gordon Cole, say hi to him for me. He'll remember the unofficial version." Again, that feels like an indication that there either does exist or will soon exist 2 separate versions of this story. Also, the line from Fire Walk with Me that is placed into this context, when Laura tells James, "Your Laura disappeared, now there's just me," with this entire season having doubles and 2 Sheriff Trumans and 2 Coopers and 3 Fuscos, and anyways, just all of this, it seems important that line is there. It's a weird thing to say. So anyways, there's a lot of that, and it's already like warping my brain in a way that I don't really know how to handle. But there is a lot of reference to that, and I don't know. I'm where are you guys at?
Yeah, it's hard to say because there's a point where I was thinking the dream. Who else says? Doesn't someone else say that line earlier in the season?
In Gordon Cole's dream, I think they talk
We're
about
like the
that.
dreamer
Yeah,
who
right.
dreams and lives inside the dream. But who is the dreamer?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm thinking that. I mean, at one point I was thinking it was more. The dream's not like a dream in the sense that we think of it as. Just that whatever the dream is, it shares similarities to what we understand as dreams. And whatever that is being whatever's involved with the fireman, and he is the quote-unquote dreamer.
Okay.
Because he seemed... I don't know, this season especially, but throughout the whole show, there seems to be this idea of predestination and people who... I mean, not people, but things work out exactly how they're supposed to work out. There is, like, either a plan or the concept of time being irrelevant and just all knowledge being in front of you at all moments. For the fireman, that seems how it would be.
Yeah.
And that's how he's interjecting all these things at all these different times. So I mean, that's the best that I've got at this point. Because like honestly, throughout this whole show, I've been like, okay, I feel like I mean, I don't understand it, but I feel like I have some sort of grasp on an interpretation that I could come up with. These two episodes just kind of fucked everything up. Like I kind of just went along for the ride on this one.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to take me a while to try and I'm going to have to. I didn't think I was going to rewatch things. I think after these two episodes, I won't rewatch the whole thing, but I'm going to go try and think what I need to go back and watch.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I'm having the hardest time wrapping my head around is this whole dream thing, because I can understand like multiple timelines, multiple realities, which is something I thought was happening a long time, like back in like season 1.
Right. And there was a cloning facility, and
yeah, well, I mean,
we saw those doubles.
Here's
We've
my
seen all that
thing.
now. So
all my predictions, I go forever. I cast a wide net. That way, I'm going to catch some fish. I'll be right on some things. But yeah, no, that's the best that I got for that. But yeah, because I don't even know where to stop this comment, because it's now leading me into all these other things. So I'm just gonna stop here. That's the best I got.
Yeah. Well, I think that something you mentioned, the idea that this is that everything is orchestrated, like especially this season, like this season stands out from the rest of Twin Peaks in that way, in that everything does feel very planned and like meticulously organized. And when you start to look at it that way, you're like, it's the only way that you could keep Dougie safe in the world is if you drop him into a situation that actually is perfectly controlled, possibly. You know what I mean? And whether that's the fireman or what that is, yeah, I think that's an interesting thought for sure.
Oh shit! Yeah. I totally just spaced that we didn't get anything for Audrey. Like nothing on that.
So there is one reference to Audrey though. The arm says, "Is this the story of the girl down the lane?" Or whatever that line is. Mm-hmm. Right. The only other time we've heard that reference is in Audrey's scenes. When I can't remember if it's her or Charlie that says it, but is this the story of the little girl down the lane? Which, what if? Okay.
Yeah. Because we also didn't get a whole lot of answers on like the season 1, like with the glass box and that entity in there.
So whether
that is Judy or not, right. I don't know, but or with some sort of connection to Sarah Palmer housing Judy in some way, just with that missing face hole. Mm-hmm. But then also kind of Laura Dern, what the fuck? Diane's also has, like, when she's like revealed to be her, there's a similar effect that happens. So I even have wonder if that's even really her. There's too much to talk. This episode's going to be 4 hours of just nonsense. I can't. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what's next then. Coop takes specifically Diane, who has kind of reemerged after Mrs. Skinner leaves, and Cole with him, and he kind of just seems to take them through a Black Lodge portal of sorts, and it's just kind of in this weird basement area.
So it is the Great Northern.
Oh, it is the Great Northern.
That's the noise that they've.
Oh, because he goes to his room in there, and then they go underneath. So there's where the noise. It's always been that whatever the hell's going on. But it's interesting that he takes them just to. In essence, those are the people closest to him. I am kind of curious about that. And then he takes a door, and he ends up in a hallway to this staircase that we've seen.
Right. Yeah. So he goes and meets with Philip Jeffries, and yeah, that's man, the fucking Philip Jeffries stuff gets, I think, even more confusing at this point, or if not confusing, broader in some ways. There's so many interesting things that he says, and we also get sort of a deconstruction of the Al Cave symbol into the number 8, which just is just an infinite loop. Yep. And which he then is, they are then placed on. He shows Judy's location on that.
Which I think is interesting that's the choice that was made, and as opposed to just being a circle to represent that, that it is two loops.
Well, true, yeah.
That are infinite and kind of that, once again, parallel universe type of thing, but in the same eternity type of concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting because there's so much like ring symbolism already with the Alcave ring, the Dougie ring, Dale Cooper's ring that the Giant takes, like all of that. Yeah, that is interesting to point out for sure. But yeah, Philip Jeffries says it's slippery in here, and he feels like. I've always just read that as feeling like Philip Jeffries is a being who at one time was constrained by time and now is not, but still doesn't know exactly what that means. I don't know. Like it's
part
such a weird
me
thing.
gets the impression that he like has to be in there to continue to survive.
Yeah,
in a way. Because at this point, it seems as though he's become an entity of the Black Lodge and possibly cannot leave at this anymore. And that's the kind of take I get of why he's... I mean, other than the fact that they couldn't get David Bowie, is the only reason he's in this tea kettle. And the same thing's starting to happen to Cooper, I believe, because it seems like the further Philip Jeffries went down that rabbit hole, the more he changed, the more he became something else. And I think there's kind of a certain point he tells him, you can go in now, which, and correct me if I'm wrong, I interpret that as you now have the ability to travel through electricity the way we do.
Yeah, I think that's
and before they get there, they start him and Diane are driving, and they kind of take a moment. He's like, things might change. He knows that what happened to Philip Jeffries. He knows that he could same things might start happening to him once he takes this step. And I think that's exactly what we start to see once he does cross over.
Yeah. Well, and I think after that also is when he goes and we have that fire walk with me scene. So he goes actually to into the past by our perception, whatever the hell that means at this point. Is it future or is it past? I don't know. Whatever it is, whenever it is,
are
on
we human
that
or are we dancer? I don't know.
The killers are a step ahead of all of us. They've already answered the future past question. They're asking the human to answer question. I'm not ready
sense.
for.
Yeah, we see him watch through this scene that we've kind of experienced before with Laura and James. It all plays out as it once did, except he's watching from afar, and then when she takes off, and we kind of know that's what leads to her night, that leads to her death. He stops her, and they have a very weird stunted exchange. And at this point, I think it's really important to know, like, Coop is very different. Like, Coop, right up until the moment when Cooper is gone and Diane returns, he is that charming Coop, and that's what that's kind of how everyone knows, and that's how the good guys win, and that's how Twin Peaks ends. And let's say that's how, like, the Twin Peaks section of that actually does end. Yeah. Because from here on, he's not, and I don't know how much Cooper can be his own self as one of these lodge entities, but from here on, he is he's changed. Even when you kind of get some boyish moments when him and Diane are together at the motel and stuff, he's definitely changed.
Yeah.
And so we actually see him lead Laura through twice. So that's in this first one, she just kind of disappears. We hear a scream. We kind of see the back and forth of the forest coming in and out, and then this is going to happen pretty much the same, but with some different beats and some different stuff at the beginning of the next episode. So interesting. It's all in black and white, and this is which also I think everything on the screen that the fireman is watching is always in black and white. That just made me feel like we are a little bit separate now. We're no longer watching this Twin Peaks happen as it had, and so we kind of see these two who are really our figureheads, our two most important characters, be led through this moment where it could be said that he changes a reality. And I think something we're going to leave with is somehow there are many realities, and in one reality, he really made life good for Sonny, Jim, and Naomi Watts. Like, he was able to leave a Cooper there, as it were. In one reality, he was able to save Laura Palmer, maybe multiple, because maybe in some she runs off and becomes this other woman. Maybe in some she just never dies, and who knows what happens in Twin Peaks. It was so funny. The moment we see Josie, I was like, okay, what happens if Laura Palmer doesn't die? But there's still all that drama with, she still wants to extort the money, and then it's just a fun soap opera. But it started spinning webs that were so fascinating to me. But I think that's most important, that we are now separate. Cooper is different. We're watching this happen, and we're starting to see these different realities or these times that we don't really understand, where you can be out of that when you're in these lodges. I did have a question. Where do we first hear, or how often, I don't remember, we don't hear lodges that much. Where do we hear about the black and white lodge? Where do we get those? Because I'm starting to think that is a lot less, it doesn't matter as much.
Well, that's from Hawk in season 1 or 2, when he talks about the White Lodge. And then that's a lot of Wyndham Earl stuff, is the lodge stuff, the black and white lodge. Which, they feel like names that people have given to things that are actually much bigger and less easy to define than that. There's for sure.
A plane of clearly to me, there's the waiting room, and there's another plane of existence where we have the fireman's area, we have the convenience store, and clearly something happened maybe in the 50s. I think it's all, of course, eternal and circular, but something that impacted our direct story, if there is ever meant to be a direct narrative, which I'm starting to question. It seems like that started that intersection, and electricity now, like you said, has become this conduit throughout the story. So it's really interesting to see that those lodge terms, which I was so fixated on just because that's a term I had heard so much about Twin Peaks, I think it's mostly bullshit. It's something that Hawk was able to use from his type of spirituality to understand some elements of this other plane of existence.
Right.
And now I've talked a lot, so.
No, I think that I think that's an important thing, and I think that for me, the end of this story too, a lot of it is addressing that, and I think it's interesting that season 2 ends with Cooper failing in the Black Lodge, and season 3 also arguably ends with Cooper failing, but in a way that we don't fully understand, and that I don't think he fully understands at this point. But I do think it is worth noting as well. So this whole scene with Laura Palmer is black and white until she takes his hand, and then that color comes back in, which almost feels like that is the moment where Cooper creates this new thing, or this other realm. So yeah, I will say that pretty much from when Cooper goes in that door at the Great Northern and says, "I hope to see you at the curtain call," I just love. I could watch that section over and over. It feels like a great primer to everything that makes Twin Peaks unique and cool. Like, the music is there. You have just weird, bizarre cuts. You're repurposing old footage, and you're recontextualizing a scream from a scene that was shot 27 years ago. It's awesome. I love it.
I have a random question.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think Diane is wearing what she's wearing? She's got her red hair, but then she's wearing this pink robe and some slippers. For me, I think everyone in the lodges or the waiting room is wearing what they were wearing when they entered that area. So Koopy's always got his suit on. I think that might be what she was wearing the night Coop came over long ago. That one night came to her apartment, and since then, that's just what she's had on until the real Diane has come back. But that whole scene is so confusing. when she finally arrives.
No, I think that's really interesting because so we do know that robe is Lucy's from when the dog got loose in the whatever the hell story that is. But we do see when Mr. C goes to the motel, like the Philip Jeffries, there's that woman that comes and opens the door for him, that is dressed very similarly to what we see Diane in.
Who's standing at the end of the credits of that episode, which is horrifying.
Yes. And yeah, that's such a weird thing. But yeah, I do want to know also, we see the jumping man again, very briefly, when Cooper and Mike go up the stairs. It then cuts to that really weird shot of going up the stairs, and you
With the
see
really
the jumping
long
man
nose,
coming
yeah.
down the stairs after they've gone up. Again, I'm not entirely sure what that means. I think, in my mind, a lot of that represents the jumping man represents evil hiding behind something. I think that's kind of like the Sarah Palmer and Judy stuff in this season. We see the boy wearing that mask in relation to Leland Palmer in Fire Walk With Me. Like, that very much feels like a very literal mask for evil. Like, he represents that. Anyways, so whether that means that, I don't know. I don't know what that means in terms of Philip Jeffries, if that's related to him at all. I don't know. But are we ready? Are we ready to move on to 18? Do we have anything else from 17 that you guys want to talk about?
I honestly can't split them at this point. My brain has been
Right.
trying to go through all of them. Also, I got 4 hours of sleep
Do we
last
have
night.
do we have anything after Laura disappearing, I guess? Which we do when Laura disappears, we hear the sound that the fireman plays for Dale Cooper in part 1 of season 3, the record sound. That sound occurs, and then he looks back and Laura is gone. We get to see Jack Nance again, which is really great. And part 17 in the credits, it does say in memory of Jack Nance, which I think is really, really touching and good. We didn't talk about Jerry Horn. We do get a wrap up to Jerry Horn's story.
A wrap up.
Which, man, giving the context of his his relationship with his binoculars to the idea that he believes his binoculars have killed a man makes that scene even better. Like, when I watch it, it's weird shit. Fucking Jerry Horn.
It's so weird how we get at least a little bit of closure on some of the characters, and then other things are just left wide open and made way more confusing.
Yeah.
Like, Jerry Horn was found by the police. He's all right. He was naked, but he's all right. You got Ed and Norma getting together happily ever after, supposedly. And then you have all of this shit that happens in these 2 episodes. And we have no idea what happens to Audrey, what the fuck is going on there.
Right, yeah.
It's so all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, let's then move on to part 18, which we get again a lot of stuff, if not exactly the same, very similar to things that we've seen this season in the Black Lodge. I think notably, the most notable thing is after Mike disappears this time, we do not see Laura again, which is normally when she does show up to do her little bit with Dale Cooper. And instead they go and talk to the Arm, who now also, that conversation is different. There's no mention of 253 this time. It is just the question, is this a story of the little girl down the lane? Is it? To which there's no answer given.
Mike also asked, is this future or is this past? And now I'm starting to think that Cooper gets to decide that.
Yeah. Well, and he says, in his little speech to everyone in the sheriff's department, he says the past dictates the future also when he's in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which they've apparently predicated this plan around. So yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that we have in there that's different or notable. He does exit. He leaves. He does leave the Black Lodge.
I did want to ask, in the Black Lodge, he has a quick interaction with Leland Palmer, and I believe that's the only time we see Leland Palmer this whole season, right?
So we've seen that moment.
Oh, we have?
I believe it's in part 2.
Okay.
It's in one of the first episodes. But yeah, it is. He does tell that same line of "Find Laura,"
Right.
Which would imply then, right, that since Laura's not there, I interpret that as because she's not dead anymore in that reality, so she's no longer there, but Leland is.
Yeah.
So
Again,
I mean,
it's
I mean,
slippery.
he, I mean,
in here,
he's. I
you
mean,
know?
I mean,
Ray Wise, man.
he's. I guess he still is possessed by Bob, so he has some sort of connection with there. But yeah, it's interesting that he's still there, but she is not.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. But yeah, that so that plays out, and he comes out into Glastonbury Grove to Diane, and then they drive 430 miles, and we see all but maybe 2 or 3 of them. I think we see about 427 miles of driving in real time.
This is only the first road trip of the episode.
Yes, this is one way. And yeah, they drive that to that magic number of 430, which this is the episode where we finally get referenced overtly the fireman's counsel to Dale Cooper when he says, "Remember 430, Richard and Linda," which
I
again,
didn't remember that at all. The names at all.
yeah. So that's again, like I was saying, if you just go back and watch the first 4 minutes of this season, even there's a lot of things that you will look at in a different. You'll have different lenses to look at those things through. But yeah, that which is interesting. We get I think the thing that this episode, these 2 episodes really hammer home is the idea of this ritualism in all of this. All the stuff that Mr. C has done, the stuff at Jackrabbit's Palace, which is also where Mr. C goes to, all of that. Like all of it, there's all this ritual and preciseness to all of it. And I think that even extends to the sex scene that we see between Diane and Cooper, which is long, and it is not. It doesn't feel like a sex scene for very much of it. It is very uncomfortable. But yeah, it's interesting to see. Like, I feel like these 2 episodes are steeped in that idea of ritual and something to get to wherever they need to go. But yeah,
Did you guys like how I described that sex scene, by the way? Is that okay?
Loved it. Yeah,
Thanks.
It's gonna be my ringtone.
Great shoulder blade. Oh, sorry. 1 sec. I got a call. She climaxed. Oh, I really got to answer the phone now.
Did you say climax?
Yeah.
Okay.
She it was just bad. Yeah. It was very I don't feel like this is how either of them. He should have known. Like what? Oh.
Yeah.
I want to say before they bang, she sees her doppelganger just walking by a pillar.
Yeah.
And we kind of know one doppelganger of hers is gone. And so it's okay, what is the nature of this? This is clearly something out of Coop's control. This is not something that would be an element of any path or anything.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think, too, at that point, is she Diane at that point still? You know what I mean? Like,
so when they
or is she
park
seeing
at
Diane
4:30, to me, she's still Diane at that point.
Right, yes. Yeah, you're right. Oh, but
from there, I don't know.
She sees herself much later, though.
Right, yeah.
That's all I'm saying is, I think
much later, but for us, we just see them drive and then boom, they're there. And
right, yeah, but it's after. What I'm saying is, it's after that.
Yeah,
after they've crossed that line.
Sure.
And, yeah.
Is there a chance that she's not Diane? because of the way she is colored. And with the way that Dougie has been guided by the Black Lodge, she's just a continuation of that.
I don't know. Possibly, yeah. I mean, anything, sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just going to throw more ideas out on the table,
Yeah, no,
along with my clone theories and shit. She's not real. Fuck, we come full circle. That was a prediction I made on the first fucking episode. But yeah.
If you go back and listen to the first 4 minutes of our podcast.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a possibility there of her either whether any of Diana's left, whether she's much like a Philip Jeffries type now because of how long she has spent in the lodge. Mm-hmm. Obviously, something more has been done to her because her eyes have been covered. She's turned into an Asian woman, and I look at the slits on her face as like her trying to get that skin off so she can see again. Mm-hmm. So there's some sort of blinding metaphor there that I don't fucking understand. But yeah, that is, I think, more of like a guide to get him where he needs to go. Richard and Linda, the note is given to him there because it's weird to me because after he crosses, when he wakes up, he still knows her as Diane. He says Diane, and so she's not Linda. Right. So I imagine that's something else, some sort of hint or clue or guidance for a future thing, which we'll talk about at the end, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. That's my other. I'm just gonna throw them out there every time they pop in my head because I'm still like trying to process this. We probably should have waited a day because I'm like still trying to put all this together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I think there's so much even to dig into just with her character and the stuff that we've learned about her this season. But yeah, I think that there are a couple notable things, especially in this as well, is if we want to talk about let's talk about Judy for a minute. Philip, if this makes you uncomfortable, you can leave for a minute. We'll invite you back in when we're done talking about Judy. But so Judy has kind of been established over this as the greater evil, beyond Bob, beyond any Black Lodge entities that we've seen. And in my mind, equated to the experiment. So when I think of the glass box and I think of that is Judy. That's Judy.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
But she's also connected in my mind to
Sarah Palmer.
Exactly. In some ways, Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's just not always a floating tool video. She's other
right.
things.
Sometimes she embodies people, and she opens their face, and an agent of chaos and evil.
Well, yeah, and so I think Also, I'm going to get into a little bit of Final Dossier stuff. There's not a ton that actually applies to the ending of the show, frustratingly. But there's a lot of kind of wrap-ups for other characters that live in Twin Peaks in the Final Dossier. But one of the things that is mentioned is stuff about Sarah Palmer's childhood, how she grew up in New Mexico and would have been about the correct age for the girl that we see in part 8 that
really
swallows the bug. Which that's like a point of contention. There are some people who are into that, some people who would rather it was just left.
I'll take it.
Anyways, but yeah, I think that ties Judy to especially Sarah and Laura, and then also this glass box. And I think it's notable when Judy appears in the glass box, which is when, I'm not going to remember their names now, Tracy and the guy are having sex in that room. There is something about sexual energy in Twin Peaks, because that's another thing we talked about with the secret history was the idea of using sex. We talked about the ridiculousness of using sex magic to summon some greater evil. Is what Jack Parsons was trying to do in the desert.
whole thing
MGMT
has
song.
been a
And the MGMT
The
song,
electric
exactly.
field, making electricity. That's a sexual reference. And
and
it,
if you make electricity, demons will come. Give you
sex is
chlamydia and
evil.
kill
Don't
you.
have it.
This whole thing has been a plea for celibacy from David Lynch.
David Lynch will get hard, but he won't.
You won't use
You won't
it.
go
He
there.
can.
He just shows the French lady, "See, you can go now."
But I do, and so to me that the scene with Diane and Cooper in the motel in part 17 or part 18 kind of mirrors that in some ways, and again they're using that to accomplish something, and it's terrible and I hate it. And we also get the Platters song that we got in part 8.
Yeah.
That's when we hear it again.
I really enjoy it.
And that's the last song we hear in Twin Peaks. After that scene, there's no other music.
I mean, there is one of the symbols for Owl Cave is fertility, right?
Yeah,
Which
for sure.
could be connection to sexual energy. And
Yeah,
sure, I'm just throwing more shit out, but
Mr. Todd have some sort of connection to the box? More crazy, like
well, because he was connected to Mr. C. I think
Right.
I think that early on he was connected to the box, and then
he talked to that
connected
security
to him or
guard or
something.
something.
yeah,
So it seems like Mr. C was almost for some reason he was filming and thinking this box was going to
Well,
have.
I'm wondering if
he knew it was
he's
a special,
like
Go
an
ahead,
agent
you
for Judy, like Judy's trying to get Cooper, and so that's why they're supposed to watch for when he pops out.
And
Yeah.
somehow
So
they
can catch
knew
him.
that was a possibility. That
and
makes
they
sense.
and
That
they
makes
are
sense.
out of the room when Cooper comes through the box,
Yeah.
but in the room when Judy comes through the box. Yeah, so it's there's weird stuff going on there. There's a guy. Okay, literally 3 weeks ago, this guy posted this 4-hour fucking Twin Peaks theory.
Just looking at Reddit right now.
Did you
and
find
I'm
it? The
reading through
Space Cadet
comments
one?
on that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's nuts.
That's what the comments are saying. Yeah.
But kind of in the most fun way possible. If you want to see a Twin Peaks theory through the lens of quantum mechanics and I'll fucking say it, quantum storytelling, go watch a 4-hour video about how Dougie's storyline is ripped from a Billy Zane movie that was made 15 years ago, and that the Billy that they're referring to in the show is Billy Zane.
I like
It's fucking crazy. But there are pieces of it I actually really like, legitimately. I just need to sift
never
through all
find
the
out who
other
Billy is.
dumb shit.
We don't know who Richard and Linda are.
But yeah, so basically from there, yeah, we have after that scene, we have a completely changed Cooper. An unrecognizable
right.
Cooper. Not unrecognizable. He does feel like the middle of the road between the Dale Cooper we know and love and the Mr. C
Yes.
we hate.
He's very solemn.
Yeah. And he's not going to politely ask people to not do something bad. He's going to fuck them up when they do something bad. Which he does. And it's kind of fun. I don't know. I like that. I like seeing
it's
those
great.
guys
Yeah.
getting their asses kicked. But yeah, he goes to... I think it is worth noting as well, when Cooper wakes up, he's in a completely different place. That is not the motel they checked
okay,
into.
all right. I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that.
and a different
'cause-
car.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not the car they were driving.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which
and it was
they're
parked in
driving a
first
really
spot.
old car previous to that too,
Yeah.
which feels like a specific choice. Yeah. Anyways, and then we have let's talk about Carrie Page, like the character who is probably in some way the key to everything that is to understanding this season. I feel like, and the first thing I want to bring up is I don't know if Riley probably has this written down already, but earlier in the season, it is when Hawk finds the missing pages from Laura's diary. He does say, they find 3 pages, and he says, we're still missing one. They're still missing a page. And in this episode, Dale Cooper finds a page.
Oh, shit.
Wait, when does he find the page?
Hawk, you mean?
Carrie Page.
No, I mean Carrie Page.
Page.
Yeah.
Oh,
Carrie
fucking
Page.
hell.
Yeah.
I'm so tired right now. That's cool.
But that's an interesting thing, and there's a bunch of weird connections you can actually make from Carrie Page to things that you have not seen in this season of Twin Peaks. Did you have stuff, Riley, that you want to talk about?
I saw she had like a white horse figurine on her mantle.
Yeah, very
and that's
notable.
been tied to like the Black Lodge and stuff.
Yeah,
So that was really interesting.
And a dead guy.
and a dead guy.
His body.
So her house is littered with just very specific things. One of
Nooses?
were there nooses?
I thought there were like
I didn't
nooses
even
on
know
there, or maybe just like rope. It might have just been
Well,
like
it's a common house in Odessa. It has all the staples, including dead homeless guys.
Justin, every rope's a noose if you try hard enough. Okay, but there's a chair that is like for someone who has like medical needs, like a toilet, like that kind of chair inside the door. I don't know if you guys noticed that. A dead fucking body of a man.
His brain's blown out onto the wall.
Yeah.
Like, I normally wouldn't go with you, but I need to get out of town.
I just killed the man I'm responsible for taking care
Yeah.
of with that seat. And
Well, yeah, okay, and so that's actually the connection I want to make, because when she's in the car, there is nearly no conversation. She says a couple of things. I always have tried to keep a clean house, she says. What's the next? Did you write down what the other thing she said? She said something else. I'm trying to remember what she says right after that. But she says that she has killed a man who just wearing a flannel shirt, just brains blown out, and presumably possibly taking care of him because of some medical condition, which ties it to the rest of Twin Peaks and the idea that she is possibly in this abusive relationship that is very close, at least from those few details, to Shelley and Leo from like from season 2
Also,
of Twin Peaks.
a seemingly dropped thread. What's her name? Ashley Judd's husband.
True. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
He seems to be debilitated, and she goes home. Otherwise, her and Ben Horn just talk about this noise.
Yeah.
And where's Jerry? But she does go home at one point, and
it's clearly
she's unhappy.
yeah. Whether it's like an abusive relationship or not, it is not good.
Anyway, but definitely Shelley and Leo. It brought thoughts of that as well.
Yeah, but I didn't even make that connection though with Ashley Judd's character, who I also can't remember her name. Whatever.
I still call Naomi Watts Naomi Watts.
Instead of
June?
exercising the wonderful mouthfeel of Janie E. Janie. So yeah, and then we have there is a notable thing. She answers the door. I mean, when he says FBI, she answers the door and immediately says, "Did you find him?"
yeah.
I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I mean, it could be that she didn't kill the guy. Could be that someone else killed the guy
They just
that
left the
ran
corpse
out.
there. We're gonna figure out. We're gonna stop the crime. We're gonna let CSI will be back.
That he ran out, maybe. And then she like called the cops. I don't know.
Yeah.
Odessa CSI is like known to be pretty shitty.
I mean, they're almost as bad as the Las Vegas FBI branch. But
We need spin-offs with those.
Oh, I will say just another random bullshit fact that I learned from Reddit after immediately watching this show and then hitting the internet years ago was Odessa was home to the world's largest fake jackrabbit. Not currently. It's not now. But when this was made, it was. So I want to make sure that gets out there for people in 20 years who are like, I mean, it would make sense if Odessa was tied to jackrabbits in some way. But no, Wayne, Indiana has the world's largest jackrabbit. Everyone knows that. You're correct. But in 2017, Odessa was king of the Jackrabbits.
They're third now. Oh.
They're falling every year. But yeah, so then they go to Twin Peaks with no pomp or
28-hour drive. I
circumstance.
Googled it.
Did you really?
Night,
Odessa to
too.
Twin Peaks.
What did you say?
It's all at night too. Their whole drive it takes
Yep.
place at night.
Yeah. At one point, she's worried that they're being followed. Don't worry, nothing exciting is going to happen. They're not.
That passes them, which, I mean, it helps build a little tension unnecessary for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do make one pit stop.
Yes, out of Valero.
Valero.
Shouts to Valero. They sponsor this pod. No, they don't.
I wish.
They really don't.
I don't know. I'm not taking.
We don't even have a Valero here.
Sponsor. That's perfect.
Go pick up a Slurpee.
You want a shitty gas station hot dog?
Mention Rewatchers on
never
the
gonna
pod and
sponsor
see how
us.
confused the cashier gets. I heard I could get half off the Slurpee if I mentioned this podcast.
I went to a 7-Eleven convenience store, non-gas station the other day. First one I've been to that's in America. Just gonna throw that out there. It's a related note. I felt like,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
and I did notice that their food looked exceptionally shitty.
Yeah.
In Europe, when you go to, well, at least I was in Denmark, and I went to they're almost all non-gas stations, just a convenience store. They have really good food.
Yeah,
Like, they have shish kebabs with, like, quality teriyaki chicken on them.
yeah. Fuck America and their convenience stores. Which I think is like kind of what they're getting across that scene there. That's why you see them leaving the convenience store with nothing. They don't have any Takis. They don't have any fucking
They were just
Slim
saying
Jims.
it.
They weren't going to use the
Some
bathroom. They went in
donuts.
for some snacks and were just super disappointed
Yeah.
and just walked out. They'd rather walk out empty-handed than with.
Dude, Maverick stopped carrying Nutty Buddies, and since then I'm like, why am I going to go in there?
Yeah.
What's
Seriously.
the damn reason?
Maverick, Nutty Buddies. That's
Get
what
it?
their slogan
I
used
don't
to
think
be.
they have oatmeal cream pies either. I think them and Little Debbie had a little bit of a divorce of
Okay,
sorts.
okay, hold on. Before we get too far, I think it'll be quicker to just say, what do they have, Mitchell?
Nobody knows. A water fountain with only, or a soda fountain with only mellow yellow, and Dr. Cherry or some knockoff shit.
Dr. Cherry. Oh, good stuff.
Long drive. They drive.
We're telling you the conversation. We're just filling this much time, so you get a real feeling before we
Yes.
get back to the story of how long we had to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long drive. I felt it.
And then they,
Yes.
they pull up to the Palmer's house. We're there. I did it.
Well, first the driver around, he's like, "Hey, you recognize anything?" I don't know if you've like ever lived anywhere else
Yeah.
and then moved away for a long time and then gone back at night. You're totally fucking lost. Like, I don't recognize any of this shit.
I hate when I go home. So I moved out when I was 18. Never moved back. So when I go back and they're like, "Oh, go grab this from there," I'm like, "Okay, which one?" Like, let me GPS it. And they're like, "You should know where it is." I'm like, "No, I only drove for 2 years before I moved, and now I have driven for 10 years in this other place."
Yeah.
Come on, Mom. Come on, Coop. Also, why doesn't he be like, "So what do you remember from before you were 17?
Tell me your life story.
True.
Yeah, he seems. I mean, part of it for me. Okay, so I've critiqued in the past this season, and it's how I would make some editing changes if I were in charge. There are a few scenes that I feel like I really appreciate the length they put in, and then this is one of them for me. To be honest, I think that drive helps it feel more. I don't know. It just like is a little bit of a nice for me because I like to know if there was a conversation in the car. What was it? Now I know there wasn't any. Which also I think strengthens kind of the state of Cooper's character of that he just doesn't like. He's not the Cooper we know anymore. The new Cooper we know would be like, so there's no trees out here, but you got a lot of sand.
How about that dead guy in your house, huh?
Yeah, and but I mean, there would be something more there, but now it's just I have like there's still a piece of him there that's pushing him forward. That's I got these goals, I got to accomplish these things. Nothing in between really matters, and we see that later. I think when they do approach the house, and he's just the Cooper we knew wouldn't have been. He may have been disarmed for a moment at that door when he got those answers, but I feel like he'd be a little quicker to come up with either solutions or at least make that exchange more pleasant. So I really like the drive being that long to help us feel A, how long of a drive it was, B, how awkward it was, C, Cooper's character and how he is. Also even what Paige's, I don't know her first name. What was her
Carrie.
first name? Carrie Paige's character, and a little bit more about her, and just that there's nothing there.
Yeah.
They're both these weird people, or lack thereof at this point.
Yeah, well, I think I will say the thing that hasn't changed about Cooper over these last 3 episodes is everything he's done since he's woken up from that coma is done in absolute confidence. He knows exactly what to do. They have this plan, and this does feel like the first moment where it's now he's completely lost. When Sarah Palmer doesn't open that door, this is not the plan anymore. You know what I mean? That woman actually owns Laura Palmer's house now in real life.
I
was
knew
gonna
she
ask
was a
that.
really
Yeah.
bad
I knew-
actress.
Yeah.
I
this
knew
is not
I
an
had
actress.
seen her somewhere. It was in that magazine you brought.
Yep, yeah.
And I was like, where have I seen her before? Was she in a previous episode?
I think, yeah.
And yeah, that was
Flesh
it.
World, right? That was the magazine.
Oh, gosh.
As a title-
The magazine that brought it. Yeah.
We passed around Flesh World. It was a great podcast. If you heard any pages flipping, that was it.
Bonus content for Patreon subscribers.
Just the sounds of the page flipping.
And then just
It's mostly just this.
It's ASMR, but
Look,
not.
That's a nice
if
truck.
If you donate to our Patreon, I will go to the effort of photoshopping our own ads in Flesh World for
I did not think I was
ourselves.
going to end with ads.
The best time to make Patreon promises is when you don't have one. Because you can tell people, like, listen, if you go and give us some money on Patreon, specifically on Patreon to us, we'll do lots of stuff. But yeah, so that scene, yeah, Mary Reber, not an actress, just the homeowner. She owns a very important home to David Lynch. But yeah, and then we get, it's interesting and fitting.
Quick question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Is the previous owner that she mentions the actual previous owner of the house?
That would be
I
incredible.
really hope so.
I hope not. Well, because the name that she mentioned is Chalfont, right? And then she's Tremont. Do you guys remember
Tremont.
those names?
Tremont.
those
Tremont, I
those sound very
recognize.
familiar.
So,
Okay.
the first time we hear the name Mrs. Tremont is in reference to the old woman who Donna takes Meals on Wheels to.
Oh shit!
Later, we hear it in reference to the trailer that Teresa Banks, or the trailer that's gone when Dale Cooper goes back in Fire Walk with Me, and he says, "Oh, that was owned by the
Timothy
Chalfonts."
Chalamet. Yeah, Chalamet.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, Chalfonts owned it before too. 2 Chalfonts, huh? Weird." That's Carl Rod's thing. So those names are very. Those names are running through the whole mythos of Twin Peaks.
Fuck yeah. Man. Okay. I surprisingly was like totally down with this ending. Mostly because you prepped me for it.
Yeah.
I think. Like I think if I had been one of the fans of Twin Peaks 1 and 2 and then I heard, like before this had come out and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're redoing it," I would have been more upset about this, but since I kind of got an idea beforehand and a little bit prepped, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it more later. Well, soon. But where was I going? Oh, yeah. But that piece of information, like, even makes me more satisfied. Like, I'm like, okay, yep, this is cool. This is there's a lot to unpack already. That makes it more. But it feels it makes me more satisfied if it were to just end here and there is no season 4. That just bit of information right there, I feel like helps out a ton.
Yeah, and it. I mean, there's a ton to get into with that, but I do think that also is a signifier to me that Dale Cooper and their plan failed. That it did not work out. Now, the ultimate question that I have. Anyways, we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I do the scenes where she's talking behind the door to supposedly her husband and asking the questions is just really goofy and weird.
It's a nice Twin Peaks thing. To
Yeah, while still not actually being like super overtly.
Yeah, it's not pulling you from
you know what I mean? Yeah. But it does feel just right in the vein of everything. So yeah, then we have, then they leave. Dale Cooper does. It is worth noting also, with the names Richard and Linda that we've heard tossed around, he does introduce himself at the door as Special Agent Dale Cooper to Alice Tremont. And then down into the street they go, and Dale Cooper asks, "What year is this?" Some more silence, and then that brief moment of Sarah Palmer saying Laura and Carrie Page screaming, the lights going off at the Palmer house, and then cutting to black for the end of the series.
Hot prediction. The Dreamer is a board game. And
It's like
Milton Bradley?
yes. Cooper and Twin Peaks. Cooper is trapped in the Jumanji-esque board game. And that's what Twin Peaks is. And that world. Audrey, where she currently is in the White Room, that's where they're playing the game. She's taking a bathroom break.
Okay.
She just got out because someone rolled like a 10, and it was like, holy shit, a bunch of rhyming lines that mean you're no longer stuck at the dancing party. And
What a board game. To be able to be stuck at a dancing party.
and but Coop's still in there. And the game is it's Clue. But it's who killed Laura Palmer with the can with the
That's why there's like 15 seconds of information about where I can locate my nearest retailer who carries Clue at the end of this episode.
Milton Bradley. Yeah, exactly. That's all I got on that one. I don't know.
Do we need anything else?
Actually, no, I've got a lot more. Let's keep going. Not on that theory. I got more. Let's go.
But yeah, it feels like another time like we're seeing again, this is that moment of Dale Cooper not knowing what is going on, what the plan is, what year it is, which also has not overtly been mentioned at this point. We get the feeling it's just present day.
Right.
The big thing, I will say the big theory, one of the huge things that came out immediately after this episode was like, oh shit, well they showed the Odessa sign and the population said 99,496. That was the population of Odessa in 2010. And everyone was like, yeah, that's the last time a census happened. So we do know it's post-2010 at least.
We
But people
update
are
the
like-
sign every week.
Yeah, exactly. That's people are like, so it must be 2010. What's the significance of 2010 in Twin Peaks? It's like, it wasn't on TV? Still? I don't know. Anyways.
Justin, I want to hear your thoughts
Yeah.
on these episodes, and especially the ending.
Okay, I mentioned after we finished up, before we started the podcast tonight, that something that has been on my mind for quite a while during this season is this being kind of an exploration of aging, human just getting older, and like that sounds kind of shallow I think like just saying that up front. That the very last scene with the lights going out was kind of like death in my mind for me with this series. It's kind of hard to like explain all the thoughts that I've been having about this, but there's so much about just the starkness of coming back. What is it? 30 years between the seasons,
25
years between seasons, and seeing everybody getting old and how jarring that is right off the bat. And then so many characters like Cooper we spend so much time with Dougie and he just doesn't know what's going on. And there's this thought about like, my thought that I've had is like, how this people deal with memory loss and stuff like this. These are all kind of things like this doesn't have anything to do with the story of Twin Peaks. It's just kind of like a read on sort of how it actually relates to my life or life in general, so to speak. I don't know how to really put that. Like, it's totally separate. The thoughts that I have are totally separate from the story that is taking place in Twin Peaks and making sense of that, because I can't make sense of it. So I'm trying to find some sort of meaning to me personally in my life. And that's kind of what I've kind of latched onto a little bit. Whether or not that's, I don't know. It doesn't hold up with a lot of the stuff that happens during the show, but I don't know.
Well,
just something that I've thought of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that feels like a definitely a thematic thread through, especially season 3, and the idea that we hear several times in these last couple episodes, the idea of returning home, going home. We have that shot of Dougie with Janie and Sunny Jim and him just saying home. Mm-hmm. But the idea of returning home and not recognizing it. You know what I mean? Like that. I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff like that too, which I think is one of the great things about Twin Peaks is we talk a lot about how we don't understand how a lot of the mechanics of the mythology work. We don't necessarily, in this season, especially these last couple episodes, understand what is going on. But the thing that I personally love about Twin Peaks are that there's so much to dig into, and there is so much of that stuff to find. There's no harm in just interpreting just watching the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks and just being like, Dale Cooper is awesome and he's just a good, nice guy. That is perfectly fine. You can watch just Firewalk with me and it becomes this very powerful story on its own. That's probably what I like about it, is that because it's been so different in all of its iterations, in its first run, its movie, and now it's run on Showtime, it's very easy to pick and choose and interpret things in certain ways and then be able to look at it from a different angle and interpret it completely differently. Like, it's just such a fun box to do that with, I feel like.
I was just gonna say, like, my understanding of David Lynch is that he's not, like, he hasn't come out and said one way or another, like, this is what this means. Like, he's not going to be somebody who clarifies authorial intent in anything that he does. And so, like, I feel like trying to find the meaning of various things throughout the show, like, that's something that we do naturally. I think whenever we experience a story, is there's like, what does this mean? What is the symbolism behind everything? And that's, like, obviously there's value to that because we gain personal meaning from that. But I'm kind of going off the rails here, where was I going to go with this? I think just the fact that there is, like, it's such an individual experience. And, like, I think that, digging into the mythos, or what's the word? There's a
logos?
No, not the logos. The
pathos.
The lore. There we go. The lore of everything. And I think once somebody asked a question about, like, if David Lynch and Mark Frost would agree on, like, sort of what's happening in the world, and kind of, like, there's this desire to find out what is going on in Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. And I think that for me, like, that doesn't matter as much to me, like, because I don't think I'll ever know. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if I really want to spend too much time digging into it. Like, it's fun, but I'm just going to take, this first reading, so to speak, of Twin Peaks meant something to me now. 20 years from now, if I watch it again, which I think it's probably worth going back and revisiting as you get older and have different experiences in life, might mean something completely different then. So I think that's the beauty of what Twin Peaks has done, is there's a very individual experience that can be had here. It's not the story isn't being told and it doesn't have an intent that's meant to be consumed one way, like so many stories do.
Yeah. I think piggybacking off of that, like at the end of season 2, I felt like we were trying to put together a puzzle that wasn't going to go together, and that's fine. And I think when you're, let's say, Firewalk with Me increased the difficulty by 5, and then after 16 episodes of the season, maybe 10, and then the last 2 episodes, the amount of rotation and different things that are thrown into those last 2 hours, they do frustrate me. And I know I said a couple of things that pissed Tyler off at the beginning of this, but like, I don't regret them, because I think if you're following this expecting a narrative, then it's okay to be a little pissed off. Like, I'm probably with you in that. I'm not going to try and figure it out. I might read some Reddit threads because that's fun. I don't think I'm going to watch a 4-hour video, but I'd watch a 45-minute video. But I think the best thing I can take from this is that David Lynch is an artist first and a storyteller second or maybe third. So I would much rather look at Twin Peaks as like, he made us think differently. He made us feel things. He put things onto network television and then even streaming television different from anything else. And those experiences and the quirky fun mixed with some of the more artistic stuff or the different way he moved things around, it was really a great experience, and so I'm really happy I had it. That being said, even if he has answers to the stories and to the myths and truly where everything fits within his lore, I know he would never tell us, so I'm not going to stress myself out about it. I wonder if Mark Frost knows. I wonder if I can take him out to dinner. But for the most part, no, I'm going to try and look at it as a piece of art that has narrative elements, but the narrative is actually not anywhere as important, and our brains are insanely trained that way. And I don't think he did it as a disservice, but he absolutely Trojan horsed that into the intrigue and put you through all the different emotions and elements of his piece of art because we're so trained like that. That's how he was able to get his story out there, even though the narration, the ending of the story isn't all that important. Those connections within the people are important. The connections with the towns and the emotional elements are important, but I don't think the actual day-to-day, here's what happens, here's what results, here's how everything connects outside of its within logistics matters. And that's hard, because I think we've all learned as a kid, you have a hero and a villain, you have Star Wars, and you have your cartoons that are all written with the hero's journey, and you learn to watch things where the hero loses, you learn to watch things that have a lot of ambiguity, and so I don't know if it's giving a lot of credit or no credit to say like David Lynch doesn't care, and so this is a step above that, because film doesn't have to be about story. It's an artistic thing that can not have anything to do with it, and he brings that in. That's just not part of most of our consciousness.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that it is important, I think, to separate narrative and story. Because I actually do think David Lynch is an incredible storyteller across mediums. I think that artistically, he tells story. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like story is a more general term than narrative. But I agree with you. Like, narrative, the frame with like actually like brass tacks of what that is, for sure. That's backseat. But to me, I guess for me, like, and especially with this ending, which feels extremely tragic to me, I have a hard time reading a lot of hope in this current ending of Twin Peaks. Not that that's going to change, or who knows, whatever. But I think that for me, Twin Peaks feels like such a uniquely filmic story, and it achieves things that I think you can't achieve in other mediums. I think that's what I love about it, is that it uses the medium of film to do things that you can't do anywhere else. You know, you can't really tell the story of Twin Peaks in a book. How do you read about the Red Room? How do you experience the Red Room in the same way in a book? You know what I mean? It's impossible. And so, but yeah, I just. That's what I love about it, and I love being able to. There's not a lot of shows I rewatch, because there's a lot of shows that I want to watch. Like, I love Breaking Bad. I have seen Breaking Bad, I think, twice, maybe. Probably not 2 times all the way through. I've probably skipped several episodes, like on second watches and stuff.
Slip the fly like a little bitch.
And I did not skip the fly. I love the fly. No, anyways, but like. This is a show that I just constantly go back to, and there's a lot of I have a lot of connection to it because of personal reasons as well. But I really do love just diving into it and reading it. And there are really fun Reddit threads. There are really dumb Reddit threads that are really frustrating. But it is a lot of fun.
Well, Billy is Billy Zane for my opinion.
Fair enough.
I feel like we've kind of given some almost closing statements on general thoughts. I do have some like more production side questions for you, but can we maybe get Marcus and Riley and then Tyler, maybe some broad thoughts on the ending and where you feel about it as a story and just in general? Don't fall asleep on me, Marcus.
It's hard. It's for me with the ending, and I felt the same thing after the ending of season 2. It's hard not to feel disappointed in a way. But with anything, I think Twin Peaks will benefit from multiple rewatches. Personally, I benefit from rewatching things in a huge way, and this is just one of those things that I'm excited to rewatch because I think, like both Tyler and Justin mentioned, you'll get something different out of it each time, depending on what your current life circumstances are at the time. And I think that's what the beauty of pieces of art like Twin Peaks provide is there's no inherent meaning behind everything. There's no it's hard to find a very clear overarching theme throughout everything. There are some, but a lot of it's what you end up attributing to it. And yeah, I feel similar to what Tyler said, where I there's a lot going on and I need to think about it some more.
Mm-hmm. I left with that same feeling. I was like, not that I will need a deep dive on the internet, but that I need to think it through. But then I almost didn't want to, because I'm like, well, the more I think about it, the more connections I'm going to make that are just going to not be there. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Riley.
I kind of liked the ending. I think it was because Tyler and I had talked about the show a lot, and I kind of knew it wasn't going to give me all the closure that I usually want from a show. But knowing that, like, watching it the way we did and, like, having to take notes, I kind of made my own assumptions about things and gave myself answers that I wanted. And so I'm just kind of taking those for what they are. But yeah, I think I liked it as a whole. I definitely liked the first season the most out of the whole. But I really liked the last, like, few episodes of this season a lot too. So yeah, I think it was a good one.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. Like I said earlier, I got a lot of mixed feelings that have nothing to do with the quality of the ending, if that makes sense, as far as what I think everything either means or its importance or whatever. I think that, in my opinion, I'm absolutely sure of, well, that I feel most strongly about at least, is that if we get more seasons of Twin Peaks, they are all going to end in a similar fashion. It's all going to end very open-ended, keeping with that kind of theme of a never-ending type of scenario. Also, I think most artists do not go to the extent to try and explain their intent behind things, and the reason being that art is meant to the artist doesn't want to constrict how you can feel, what you can take away from their piece, which, I mean, honestly, at times can be frustrating, but also then can kind of destroy the purpose that, like, it limits the art, I should say. So that being said, I feel like that's what we're going to get from here on out. That's how season 2 ended. And I think that might have sparked something in him to be like, I liked that long years of no one knowing. Like, I actually kind of liked where that ended in itself in some ways. There's that one spot after the first few episodes, kind of that turning point in Twin Peaks, that I actually like to think the whole show could have ended there. With Bob still being out on the loose, he's the evil that men do. He's the representation of that, and it's never going to die. I think there's something similar with this ending. I do. Part of me does feel that he did have a story in mind to continue to go to. This was a cliffhanger. I feel like he ends things in a way this could be a cliffhanger and continue, or but can be read both ways, with the intent of them being read both ways, so that he can, if he is able to get the funding and do what he needs to do, pick it back up and keep going. But yeah, I think there's that. But if this is the ending, right? I actually don't read it so much as a tragedy as it is, because the reason I don't read it that way is because their end goal of this plan is never truly stated or conceptualized. So we don't know what they failed to do, really. And he does kind of connect the dots, and he's like, wait, what year is it? So we know that's something on that. And then whether it's that, the combination of that and her looking at is the dark room her room?
Yeah.
If that's what triggers something. And then I think there's a visual thing that happens at the end that I need to go back and look at, because I want to say the lights in the house go out first before it cuts to black.
Yeah, they do.
Which I feel like is very important, that it's electricity being this hub and travel and highway for these evil entities. I think that's important, that there's a symbolic of the Palmer household losing that in a sense.
But was the fan going?
I mean, we couldn't.
We don't
see
get
it.
any talk of the fan at the end. I was waiting for it.
But yeah, I think, especially with that bit you gave us about the two previous owners, I think with Laura not dying, but Leland still being there, that place is still a hub for evil. Bad things still happened there, but they moved on. We see that Sarah Palmer, presumably Judy, stabbing that picture of Laura, and having that, once again, that effect of the frames jumping back and forth, which to me is her reaction of kind of losing that hold she had on that. So I think in that way it was more of a triumphant thing for Cooper's journey, and I'm slightly leaning towards he was meaning it as a cliffhanger, because there's the realization at the end, that cut of the electricity, the fact that we're starting to get rumors about season 4. I think there was an intent somewhere in there to continue this story.
It's interesting because as frustrated as I am that there aren't answers, I think all the pieces are actually there. I mean, I take that back. There are enough pieces there that this is an ending. We're obviously missing some connective tissue that explains the lore between dimensions, times, mythos. But I'm actually kind of satisfied with that. By the way, I feel like we have a very somber tone the last 20 minutes. a little bummed out about it. Just put some happy music behind the whole thing, Justin. And now I got accepted to a Facebook Twin Peaks meme group, so I'm just brightening up moment by moment. But yeah, I think that everything could be there for an end. I think it's hard because even until the end of episode 17, we have one reality. No, we have multiple realities, but we have a home base almost. And I think it was hard to completely lose that and feel like we don't have any of these characters and things. And I think that relates to your it's being a tragedy at the end, because we don't know what it means for Cooper to accomplish his mission and what souls or what entities of any sort that makes feel positive, which is interesting. But
for sure.
Were there any other? I wanted to ask, were there any other production things that we haven't kind of talked about that might be interesting? Characters that maybe could have been involved, weren't involved. One thing that's interesting to me, the best thing I can say is I'm going to try and build some little mini pieces of headcanon that make me feel better. And one thing might be that Audrey's just crazy, which is fine. We know that she changed she didn't love what was written for her originally. Just wondering, we didn't get any Donna. There's a handful of other people who are definitely alive and didn't come back. Is there any other production stuff?
I was surprised Heather Graham never showed up. I thought for sure she'd somewhere pop up.
She's not doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that probably has to do with that character's inception was during
not David Lynch's
Yeah,
character.
I think that maybe that was part of that.
Did David Lynch invent the cousin who looks just like Laura?
Yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind her coming back. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, she is dead.
Yeah, she died.
Yeah, but so is Laura. I mean,
Right.
in some sort of lodge entity.
Yeah.
No one's
Yeah.
dead, okay?
So yeah, I mean, I can't really think of any other huge production things. The biggest thing I mentioned was that Mary Reber owns that house and is Al Stremond. But yeah, I think beyond that, man, lots of people passed away since this show was made who are in this show.
Well, like before season 17, and now since then, I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You
It's
always
like,
mention the big two. And then,
Yeah, and I mean, Miguel Ferrer has passed away. Jack Nance passed away years ago, but Catherine Coulson, Robert Forster recently passed away. The guy who plays Detective Mackley passed away a couple years ago. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But yeah, I honestly I can't really think of too much else. But yeah,
Question for you
Yeah.
before you. I don't want to like derail you because I'm really curious to hear your kind of conclusion, what you want to say at the end. But real quick, do you know? Has David Lynch said anything about like how Twin Peaks is kind of? I feel like it's very much gained popularity amongst like our generation, like the people who watched Twin Peaks when it originally aired. Maybe this is just my bias coming into this, but is that population like? Are there more fans of the Are there more people who are fans of the original stuff than there are of like kind of people our age who didn't really get to experience, but we're experiencing it now? And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, I think that the thing about Twin Peaks is I think there's a pretty broad fan base.
Yeah.
Partially because of how broad Twin Peaks itself is. Because there are a lot of like fan conventions. There's like stuff in Snoqualmie every year. They have a Twin Peaks Fest. There's a Twin Peaks UK Fest. People do Twin Peaks burlesques. There are like all kinds of weird stuff like that. But all of those do fall back on the idea of here's a very established aesthetic, which is stuff from the first two seasons. You know what I mean? It's the music, it's the coffee and the pie. It's that kind of thing. Whereas it's hard to build a fun burlesque around season 3 of Twin Peaks. I'll say it. I've been trying for years. I just can't do it.
the hobo zombies didn't.
No one likes to see a bunch of half-naked Dougies
Got a
milling around
light.
on stage trying to stick forks into light sockets.
Swinging on gym sets.
You could have like a very nice burlesque thing around a gym set. Some nice pole dancing.
Every boy should have a gym set.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, I mean, I think
Found our new
that
career.
I think that's the thing. I think that the biggest division probably is that there are probably more older Twin Peaks fans who really do not like season 3, and the younger people who like Twin Peaks. A lot of them like it because it goes into season 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
In a lot of ways, the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks is a hard ask to get into at first because it feels cheesy. It was made in 1989, you know, and because of that, I think there are going to be a lot of younger people that are put off. But there are just as many who, if they're like, okay, this is going to go some insane place, I'm going to have a brand new show to watch that came out 2 years ago, I'll put in the time here, and then they start, and then they like that, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think there is kind of an age thing there for sure. But yeah, it's an interesting, it's a really great fan community.
Yeah,
I think it's one of my favorite things
I'm
about
curious, just because like the conversation that occurs online about the show, like I would assume, like on Reddit specifically, is predominantly going to be dominated by millennials.
Yeah.
And so just like hearing, like that's kind of the environment that we are going to be consuming that, like all of our internet stuff, and so just like having that perspective, and I'd be curious to know what older fans of Twin Peaks think about everything and just their take on everything and different perspectives. It'd be really interesting.
Well, the guy who wrote Reflections, which I referred to a bunch when we were in the first couple seasons of Twin Peaks, obviously huge Twin Peaks fans, absolutely hates season 3, is very vocal about hating it. But yeah, I think part of it is a generational thing. But yeah, anyways, we'll go ahead and close this out now. I think we'll forgo recommendations this week. But I just want to thank all you guys for watching Twin Peaks with me. It's been long. It felt very quick. Now that we're at the end, it feels very fast. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys. Anyone who's listening, who's watching with us, thanks for listening and watching. If you want to reach out to us, we're going to keep going. We're not done. We don't know exactly what yet. We will be taking next week off, and then after that, kind of through the holidays, we'll probably just do a bunch of movies, and we'll probably have some new people on, some special guests and stuff, and we'll kind of have a bunch of rotating chairs in here, and then I'm sure at the beginning of the year we'll start another rewatch of some kind. But yeah, if you want to reach out to us with your recommendations, anything about the ending of Twin Peaks, Game of Thrones, whatever, we'll talk about it all, as evidenced by our extended Twin Peaks universe at this point.
If you want to talk Texaco stations, we're fucking here.
And you can talk to us about those things at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com or at our Twitter at rewatcherspod. And signing off from the lodge for the last time, it's me, Tyler Harris.
Marcus Marinos.
Riley Harris.
Tyler McKinley.
Mitchell Marshall.
Justin Hammer.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap. It's a wrap on season 2 of this show. Twin Peaks.